Okay, so we're now broadcasting. Well, hello everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today. I've got another wonderful panel that's going to be with us for the next hour, and this is a really exciting opportunity to shine a light on paediatric nursing and the opportunities that there are and some best practices around developing them in their early careers. So we're absolutely delighted to be joined by ECHO today, which is the European Children's Hospital Organisation. If I could have the next slide, please. So, as I've said, we've got a great lineup. I myself am Lisa Bayliss-Pratt, and it's an absolute privilege to be a programme director for the Nightingale Challenge, which is a work stream of the 3-year social movement, which is called Nursing Now, and it's all about raising the profile and status of nurses and midwives globally in order to deliver better and more healthcare. We've also got with us Jennifer McIntosh, who is the project director from the European Children's Hospital Organisation, and we'll be hearing about that wonderful work, and also some really exciting examples from the Cincinnati Children's Hospital from Julie Moody, and we've got Ireland, which is Rosie Sheehan, that's going to talk about their super work that they're leading within this space. And then we've got time for questions and answers. So please do put your questions and answers into the box, because there's an opportunity to ask us what we do and how we can help support you with this global program, and also any other queries that might come up that you have. Please do put your questions in there, and we love it as well if you can let us know in the chat box where you're from and perhaps just a tiny bit about yourselves, so that we get a feel for the audience that's out there, hopefully listening to us and enjoying this presentation. Next slide, please. So a little bit about the Nightingale Challenge. As I said earlier, I'm so privileged to be the programme director for the Challenge, which is a global movement, and it's all about engaging early career nurses and midwives in leadership development activities. And I just can't believe that we've got over 30,000 nurses and midwives from over 800 employers across the world that's engaged in this initiative. And the most fantastic thing about this, or one of the most fantastic things, is that it's about the employers really spotting the talent of their early career nurses and midwives, giving them the opportunity to do something different, and seeing them as part of the solution to some of the workforce challenges that many of us face within delivering healthcare today. So we're all about helping providers and employers to champion the leadership roles and opportunities there are for nurses and midwives, to provide them with development opportunities so that they can really think differently and understand the influence that they can bring to bear on some of the many challenges that we face in healthcare. We know that the healthcare is changing fast, and therefore the workforce need to respond to this. And what we've seen throughout this period, since we launched the Nightingale Challenge, which was in June 2019 back in Singapore, that there's many amazing early career nurses and midwives out there that really want to be given this opportunity to do different stuff, to be part of the solution, and to engage in the wider issues that we face in delivering healthcare. So we've had some of our early career nurses engage with the chief executive of the organisation. We've had them visit parliamentarians, their local MPs or their ministries of health. And it's been real fantastic to see these early career nurses and midwives understand the wider dynamics and the politics around healthcare and what it is that they need to do in order to positively influence this agenda. So as I talked about earlier, it is a really exciting, growing global movement. And as I said, I still can't believe it, the sort of challenge we set ourselves at the outset when we launched this programme was to get 20,000 early career nurses and midwives involved. Well, we can't believe we've surpassed that with now over 30,000, 801 employers. And it's really important that we engage the employees in this initiative, because it's about the employers wanting to commit time and energy into focusing on the early careers nurses and midwives that they employ. We've got this in 79 countries, and more recently we've created partnerships, and that's been through the wonderful work that my colleague Matt Daly has been leading on, and that's all about finding opportunities for nurses to connect with each other in different countries, in different regions, in order to share what it is that they're striving to achieve, to explain the programs that they're delivering, and in some wonderful partnerships they're actually sharing resources, which is fantastic. We've also started to identify, and this I think is where we began conversations with ECHO, is particular groups of specialties that are really keen to come together from different countries to engage with each other. And this has really been where the partnership work has started to flourish. So we've identified early career nurses and midwives that work in oncology, that really want to network with each other, that want to be given opportunities to do different things. We've also undertaken some work around stroke and brain injury, and we've created some really exciting global solution initiatives around how do we help our early career nurses to think different about these areas. And our latest is around paediatrics. So we really hope through engaging with you today in this webinar that you'll want to join this social movement as a paediatric community that really wants to support its early career nurses and midwives to think differently, to be platformed, to have a profile, and to engage in things that perhaps early career nurses working on their own in their specific organisations wouldn't have the opportunities to do so. So we're really excited about today, and really hope that this is the beginning of spreading the word about the wonderful work that paediatric nurses do, and what it is that their early career nurses need in order to not only stay in the profession but also do amazing things that innovate and challenge the status quo and actually improve the care that they deliver to their children, young people, and the families that support them. Next slide, please. So here's just some a positive quote here from a really formidable chief nurse that interestingly has since engaged in the Nightingale Challenge in nursing now, is now in the region of Uganda, responsible for the policy direction of nurses and midwives. And Beatrice Amugi, who I've personally met, was perhaps a little bit sceptical about, do early career nurses really need leadership and development, or do they just need to hone their experience and bed in as a safe, competent practitioner? But we managed to say, come on, Beatrice, Uganda's a forward-thinking country that wants to do stuff differently, really passionate about nursing. And she said okay, and she managed to bring together a group of early career nurses that she herself actually followed and mentored and support. And this was the quote that came from her, is that she now believes it's really important. It does enhance the young nurses and midwives' knowledge and leadership skills, and it provides them with the confidence that often she felt they were lacking to be influential decision makers. And she's not only had one cohort of Nightingale Challenge nurses, but she's on a second and wants to influence the region that she's now responsible for as the chief nursing officer working for that ministry, all of the hospitals and community settings to engage in this programme. So an amazing champion that started off a bit sceptical, but now sees the real benefit of putting a focus on these early career healthcare workers. Next slide, please. We've also got the fantastic Elizabeth Madigan, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Sigma. And Sigma, again, has had such a positive experience with the programme. They're now starting a second cohort with 45 nurses from 10 different countries. And I've heard this story over and over again, that once you start doing this, not only do you want to do more of it, but you actually want to modify and develop and evolve the programme so that these early career nurses and midwives really feel like a force for change, a force for good, that's within the organisation, that's driven to think and do things differently. And this is from Kim, another one from Sydney. This is just giving you a global flavour of the network that we've created. And again, you know, I've spent time talking to Kim. You can see what she's saying. It's been a fantastic opportunity for us to shine a spotlight on the vast pool of talent that they've got within their workforce. And they're using this opportunity to give their nurses a voice, to empower the emerging leaders, and also supporting the strategic priorities that she is trying to drive forward. So she's really delighted about this, and spin-offs from this have been her influence in undergraduate nursing education, and she's started now to have conversations with her universities where her students are trained to influence that curriculum, so that that leadership development starts very early on within that program. So again, the opportunities for this to flourish in other parts of the system are really now starting to prove to be evident. And we've also got some brilliant examples of young nurses and midwives leading hard-hit communities, not only with COVID, but also some really disadvantaged areas across the world. And this particular midwife, Harriet, I spent time with, she's actually another colleague from Uganda that's developed this midwifery-led program, which is all about supporting young girls actually that don't get the chance to go to school and don't get the chance to have any idea about what it might be to have a career in health, to do something more than just stay within that village. And this project that I saw is not only helping these young people to find their way into adulthood, but she's also been able to influence the ministry with a bit of support from us, and secured some funding, not only from the ministry, but also from the Paediatric Trust to continue to evolve this project. So the serendipitous opportunities that seem to be emerging by just giving these young nurses and midwives the opportunity to do something different is absolutely transformative. So what we really hope is that you will consider joining this the Nightingale Challenge, which I'm delighted to say is now going to be extended for at least another 2 years. That we've decided that this programme is so worth investing in, and that there's so much more that it can achieve, that it's not going to end in May 2021 like we thought it would. It is going to continue, so there's still plenty of time to get involved. It's great to connect locally but also globally. We can provide opportunities to signpost and share leadership resources, so please don't think you've got to develop a whole raft of leadership resources. We've got that, and I'm sure you have too. We put on regular webinars and initiatives to enable the sharing of best practice, to network, to provide opportunities for people to come together that might not normally do so. And I think one of the few positive things out of this dreadful COVID period has been the ability for us to come together from all sorts of different places across the world to connect and share our ideas over an hour in this way, and long may that continue, because it's certainly been one of the highlights of my year to be able to connect in this way so frequently with many different people that are often striving to achieve the same thing. So lots of opportunities for us to collaborate, local, national, international, and to share and put the spotlight on really important issues. And just a little bit more about the partnerships now. Again, we really do encourage those people that sign up, early career nurses and midwives, to think about partnering with another organisation, because it gives those early career nurses and midwives the opportunity to feel like a global citizen, to be part of something bigger, to connect with a country and a healthcare system that they might be curious about, or they might have visited or want to visit. And it just gives an opportunity to broaden the horizons of the people that you're working with, and give them the chance to really think about, how do you deliver leadership in these spaces? What sort of research are we interested in? Where's the commonalities in our practices? What would we like to explore together? looking from each other's worlds, from different country perspectives. And I think the enrichment that that brings to the individuals cannot be underestimated, not only in what they might come up with to partner on, but also just their sort of view of nursing and the difference that it can make in all sorts of ways that we can easily expose them to. And as you can imagine, the partners that have come together to connect have had really positive experiences of sharing the challenges of delivering high quality care through COVID, what some of the problems and solutions are, and actually just supporting each other through these really difficult times. So it really helps them to build that network of support, which we know is so important to an enduring, flourishing career in these great professions. And then I think we're nearly coming to the end of my bit now, which you're probably pleased to hear. But this is a really exciting initiative that I mentioned earlier, which is our Global Solutions Initiative. And what we identified back in the summer, there's so many fantastic early career nurses and midwives out there that do want to do something different. How do we create a platform and an opportunity for them to identify a solution, to identify what it is that they would really want to do differently if they're enabled and empowered to do so? And as a result, we launched the Global Solutions Initiative. As I said earlier, we've got one that was created around brain injury, and we managed to get a champion from an organisation called Same You, which is a charity, and engage lots of really interesting clinicians in some really good examples of how you can deliver high quality care pathways for people with brain injury that doesn't have to be a deficit model, that's actually built on assets and built on strengths. And as a result, we were delighted with the challenge that we put out there, that we ended up with a Ghanaian team of nursing students supported by their faculty to come up with a solution that's now running. And then the second solution that we've just initiated, and I don't think I can let you know the winners as yet, but that's been about how do nurses influence building healthy communities and healthy cities, and what roles could we play in really supporting communities to thrive in healthy, to be health creators actually, and to thrive within communities, to be engaged in architecture, in pollution, in all of these things, in dangerous roads that create accidents. And again, we've got a really exciting set of applicants that have submitted for that solution too. So do have a look at this site. It's really energizing, but it just shines another light on all of that talent that's out there that needs to be supported and liberated, because they've got amazing ideas and amazing ways in which they can make positive change stick. And I think finally, just some more information here to signpost you to. So we've got our website. You can contact us by info@nursingnow. We've got hashtags, and we're really excited to be engaged with you, and hope that you start to join this social movement, and we learn more and we share more about the brilliant work that paediatric nurses do day in, day out across the world. Thanks very much. I think that's my last slide, and we're now over to our next speaker, which Julie, over to you. Thank you.
I think it's Jennifer first.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's me.
Oh, Jennifer, apologies. Over to you, Jennifer.
No. There we go. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you to the Nursing Now and the Nightingale Challenge for partnering with ECHO. As Lisa said, my name is Jennifer McIntosh. I'm a project director at the European Children's Hospitals Organization. So I'll keep this very brief because the focus today is on pediatric nursing, not on ECHO, but just to give you some background of who we are. ECHO is a relatively new organization. We've been around for about 3 years now, and we represent children's hospitals in Europe. Currently, we have 13 members from 13 different countries across Europe and Israel, and we are growing. Our mission is very simple. We advocate for child health and access to the best quality health through the collaborative work of children's hospitals. We do that in a variety of different ways. I lead a lot of our advocacy work. We look at quality issues, sharing data, and of course, workforce. And which brings us to nursing. And of course, nursing touches every aspect of what we do in our children's hospitals. Nurses are the largest group of healthcare professionals in our hospitals. And when I talk to our members, everybody says that they face some sort of staffing and workforce challenge. It can be, these are different, whether it's recruitment or retention, but everybody's facing challenges around nursing. And when I dug further, I found that nobody really felt like they had, at least in Europe, a clear pan-European network where pediatric specialty nurses could come together and share their expertise and support each other's growth. But I also found that there was a lot of interest. Lisa mentioned, she had a phrase, liberating talent. And that's what I just felt like there was so much interest and desire, but not a clear outlet for it. So that's when I contacted the Nightingale Challenge to see if we could potentially partner together. And they have been very supportive and very open to working with us and agreed to host this webinar specifically focusing on the needs of pediatric nurses. So that's where ECHO comes into this picture. And that's all from me. I want to turn it over now to our nurse leaders who can share their experiences with you about how they've worked with the Nightingale Challenge and what they're doing to support pediatric nurses in their hospitals. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jennifer. And I think Juliet is over to you now. Thank you.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. I'm Julie Moody, and I am so excited to be here today. I am from Cincinnati Children's. I just want to make sure you can see my screen. Jennifer, can you give me a nod if you see it?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. So before I get into our program here that we're doing at Cincinnati Children's, I just want to tell you a little bit about our hospital. So for those of you that are not from the United States, let me give you a point of reference because I'm not from the United States either. Originally, I'm from England. And before I moved here, my map of the United States consisted of New York, California, and Disney World. I didn't realize that there was anything in between. So to orient you to Cincinnati, it's about 4.5 hour drive or 300 miles south or southwest of Chicago, and about 650 miles or 10.5 hours drive east from New York City. So it's kind of in the middle of the country. Our hospital has consistently been ranked in the top 3 pediatric hospitals in the United States for the last 8 years, and we are magnet recognized, and we do have an accredited RN transition to practice program. We've been named to Forbes 2020 list of America's best employers for diversity, best employers for women, and an LGBTQ healthcare equity leader. We consist of 4 sites around our city, the main hospital, which is in the downtown area, which is where I'm located, a small satellite hospital about 30 minutes north of the city, and 2 pediatric psychiatric facilities. We also have 20 clinics and outpatient locations around the city. Between the sites, we have 692 licensed beds. We have 16,435 employees, of which 2,955 are registered nurses, and 50 are licensed practical nurses. And we have a very young staff. We hire many, many new graduate nurses every year as we are constantly growing and expanding. Oh, can't go to my next slide. Oh. All right, so let me get into our programs here. So we actually developed these programs you see here about 4 years ago. And to meet the Nightingale Challenge this year, we increased the number of attendees in each of the programs so that more of our nurses could gain leadership skills. We really wanted to be part of this challenge to be able to connect with other nurses around the world and to share the great work that we do here. This year was a challenge of a different sort, as you are all very aware of. So what I'm going to present to you here is how our classes look in normal times. This year, we moved everything to a virtual platform. We had the same content, but the in-person classes were virtual, and the shadowing experiences couldn't happen due to our social distancing guidelines. As you can see, there are some differences in the three programs. The Emerging Leader program is actually an interdisciplinary program. We encourage not only nurses, but other healthcare providers to attend this class, although the participation is overwhelmingly nursing. The class is purely about development of the next generation of frontline leaders. As you know, many times nurses are promoted on their great clinical skills, not necessarily their leadership skills. So this class is all about the skill a nurse or allied health professional would need to help to transition if they were going to get a manager role in the future. And I'll get a little bit more into the content of that in a second. The other two classes, the RN Clinical Leader classes, are specifically for our nurses staff. These classes help to provide the skills needed for nurses to lead at the bedside. They both consist of very similar content, but there is more in-depth information in the RN Clinical Leader 2 class. In the original version of the classes, it was only one class, and we realized that the nurses attended had such a vast difference in knowledge that we needed to develop two different classes. So as you can see, the classes are split to accommodate more experienced nurses who have some leadership experience, and then the newer nurses who have like 1 to 4 years of experience. On the right-hand side are the titles of each of the classes over the 6-month period, which is the length of the duration of the classes. And as I previously mentioned, the Emerging Leader content is very much about developing skills as a manager as well as leaders. And the RN Clinical Leader content is based on the American Association of Critical Care Nurses' Healthy Work Environment. As you know, being part of a healthy work environment leads to more engagement, decreased turnover, better patient outcomes, and reduced nurse burnout. So to build our classes, my colleague and I did some extensive literature review and were able to speak with experts on leadership development. We looked both within nursing and beyond the field. The model we used to develop the classes you see here, this was developed by Dr. Jennifer Titzer, now Evans, during her doctoral studies on leadership development. On the left-hand side is Benner's stages of professional development, and on the right, the succession planning strategies that go along with these stages. This gave us a really nice framework to work from and to assess where nurses were in their leadership development journey. So now the programs. Here's what the programs look like. Even though the classes have different content, the flow is very similar for each of the classes. The first class is orientation. Here we have all three groups together. So the Emerging Leader, the RN Clinical Leader 1 group, and the RN Clinical Leader 2 group. And they're all there in one room. We go over Blackboard, which is the online platform that we use. We talk about searching the literature, the hospital strategic plan, and about project management. Then the fun part. Each of the students in the program has a mentor for the duration of the program. The mentors are either managers or directors for the Emerging Leader, and for the RN Clinical Leader group, either someone who has previously been in the program, someone who is a charge nurse, someone involved in leadership projects, in shared governance, or really anyone who is just a really good role model. The mentors apply for the program and go through a short class, and then we do a mentor match. Mentor match is speed dating. Each participant gets to spend 5 minutes with each mentor, moving from table to table. And at the end of the mentors, they pick their top 3 mentees, and the participants pick their top 3 mentors. 95% of the time, this works out, and every once in a while, I have to make it work. So the minimum requirement is that the mentor and the mentees meet for the duration of the program, at least monthly. But many of our relationships have lasted more than the required time, and they have grown to be good friends. After the orientation class, the participants start in their sections. So we do use a flipped classroom approach where they complete work in Blackboard, such as read an article, watch a video, work on a case study, or do an exercise on the unit. And then they discuss what they would do in the situation. And then they discuss that in the discussion part of Blackboard. Then they come to class. There's a month between each class, so plenty of time to get to Blackboard work done. During the class sessions, we talk about the work they did online and why they answered the way they did. And we have guest speakers from the hospital come to speak. We talk about budgets and finance. Our AVPs speak about the strategic plan. We talk about developing others. Our hospital recruiters come and do mock interviews and resume reviews. The classroom learning is a lot of fun. They get to see people and speak to people that they wouldn't normally interact with from around the hospital. We play games to reinforce learning, and we have lots of great discussion. Additionally, during the classroom session, we work on giving and receiving feedback. Each participant is grouped with a number of others in the class, depending on the class size, to present on their topic of the month, which I showed you in that second slide. They give about a 20-minute presentation in whatever format they choose, and they get feedback on their presentation. Then they tell the group what they did well and what they need to work on, and the group gives feedback on what they thought they did well and what they thought the presenters needed to work on. This is really a great lesson in giving honest and open feedback that people can grow from. Additionally, the class participants work on a project that they have discussed with the manager from the unit and are expected to give progress updates during the class time. Oftentimes, the projects are not completed at the end of the 6 months, but they present where they are during the graduation period. Additionally, the participants have an assignment of interviewing a leader within the hospital that is above a manager level. And our participants have interviewed our chief nursing officer, our chief executive officer, people from human resources, and various other people. We actually had one person who went outside the hospital and interviewed our coroner because she was very interested to know what the coroner did. So this provides them exposure to many different people within the organization. Everyone then comes and reports back on their interview and what they learned. After the 6-month duration of the programs, we have a graduation ceremony, a breakfast. The participants, managers, and directors are invited to the ceremony. Our chief nursing officer comes and gives a speech. Their mentors come and give them a speech, and each of our participants receives a certificate of graduation from the program. During the graduation, the participants present their project work, their knowledge gained from the program, and what they will be working towards as the next steps in their development. And then finally here, this is a slide of our outcomes. So the blue bar is the RN clinical leader class, and the green bar is the emerging leader class. As I stated earlier, these classes have been in existence for us for about 4 years. So this is reflecting all the data from our first class to our most recent. Retention has been good in both categories, but what I am most proud of is the 38% of the nurses in the RN clinical leader class who decided they would further their education by going back to school to either receive a master's or doctoral level degree. Additionally, the 42% of the participants in the emerging leader class who were promoted to leadership positions within our organizations. So I have really loved being involved with these programs and helping develop our nurses. And I can honestly say that it really has been one of the most rewarding parts of my career to be able to participate and help these nurses grow. So with that, this is the end of my presentation. I did put my email information up here. If anybody would be wanting to contact me, I'm happy to share any information that I have learned along the way. Now I'm going to hand over to Rosie.
Thanks, Julie. Absolutely inspirational. Can't wait to ask some questions after this presentation. Brilliant to see the outcomes.
Thank you.
Amazing. Great, Rosie. I think it's over to you now.
Thank you. I'll just get this to share. Oh, sorry, I didn't hit the right one. No. Slideshow. So thanks very much for asking us to speak. So I'm Rosie Sheehan and I'm a children's nurse working for Children's Health Ireland and the HSE. Has my screen shared fully? Yep. So I'm working on a project.
Rosie, it
yeah.
isn't. It's showing it. Can you go onto slideshow? Can you?
Yeah. Oh, there we go. Is that now? You got it now. Yeah. Great. Thank you. Sorry about that. So I was saying, my name is Rosie Sheehan and I'm a children's nurse and I'm working on a project, a national project in Ireland on children's nursing. So we just thought this would be a good opportunity as part of this of Nursing Now and the ECHO group to just tell you a little bit about what we're doing in children's nursing in Ireland very briefly, but that the most important thing about what the work I've been doing on children's nursing is that it will require huge leadership right across the profession of children's nursing, and particularly from our young nurses, because we are developing a strategy for the future. So that will require all of our nurses to get involved and to grow this project so that we can deliver the best care possible to the children, Irish children. A really a proud thing for the Irish country is that we actually educate at undergraduate and postgraduate children's nurses, which leads to a registration in children's nursing, which is quite unique in the world. There are only a few countries in the world that have that, and it's something we're very proud of and hope that we will continue to grow. Our children's nurses, particularly at an undergraduate level, are very highly academic nurses. They require quite a high degree of points to enter the university programs, and it's a very competitive program to get into. So we have got a very intellectual group of young people joining children's nursing, which offers a lot of great leadership potential for the future. So just to tell you a little bit about it's in Ireland at the moment, there is a lot of transformation going on in children's health. We have a brand new children's hospital being built in Dublin, which is to serve the Dublin and the eastern part of the country, as well as being the tertiary referral centre for the entire country. We have a population of about 1.2 million children in the country. We have a brand new government policy in Ireland in relation to health, and it's all about moving care closer to home. And I think that's probably the trend globally. We have a lot of changes in the patterns of needs of our children and families, and I think this is across the globe. Mental health issues, obesity, marginalised children, maybe we have a lot of homeless children. We have a lot of chronic illness. About 16% of Irish children have a chronic illness. We have a growing group of children with complex care needs. So it's requiring our children's nurses, who in the past would traditionally have been acute-based nurses, it's requiring a different set of skills to nurse children in the community, to nurse children at home, to look at taking up more leadership roles in relation to children's health, particularly in relation to advanced practice, where they can take over services and look after children perhaps in the community, which is a whole new concept for us. We have a lot of diversity in the country. Our country's demographics has changed a lot in the last 20 years. Our new hospital plans to be a HIMSS level 7 hospital, so technology is going to be a huge part of the future for children's nursing, and it's going to require us to really step up and embrace technology and what it can offer. We've had some great examples through the pandemic, switching to telemedicine and various platforms that we're using, and a lot of it has come about from our nurses coming up with new and innovative ideas. Maybe we had a presentation recently from a nurse who set up a diabetes clinic, and she presented on all the different ways she manages to engage with the families and keep them at home and safe. So that's kind of what's happening. So in relation to then, to meet the needs of that, children's nursing about a year and a half ago sort of realised that in order to meet the needs of children in the future, we really need to examine children's nursing, how we are educated, what our role is, what sort of continuing professional development we need, what sort of leadership skills we need, who are our leaders. Do we need a lot of leadership positions, or do we need to have leadership from the ground up? And I think that's our biggest realization, is we need to build our leaders from the ground up. So we set about a national project, and I am lucky to be that project officer. So we have set up like a steering group, and that have conducted a scoping review of the international literature on the role of the children's nurse, and that's very insightful, and much of the trends that I mentioned earlier are what is reflected in the literature. We have consulted extensively with children's nurses throughout the country and other nurses, because in Ireland there are only 5,000 registered children's nurses, but we have 1.2 million children, and they receive a lot of healthcare from a lot of other nurses. So that calls for children's nurses really to lead in the care, because we have those skills in family-centred care, child development, understanding the needs of the child and family, that maybe if you're a registered general nurse, you may not have grasped that part. But so we need to step up and lead the care for those children. We consulted with over 1,000 nurses, and I'm really happy to say about 30% of those nurses were under 30 years of age. It was really important for us to make sure we had the voice of our young nurses coming through in the strategy for the future, because this will be about them, and this is a great opportunity for them to take over and lead the way in how we transform children's nursing. Another interesting finding so far from our consultation is over 70% of the nurses that we engaged with had either a postgraduate or a higher diploma, and 20% of them hold a master's. So we have a really well-educated group of nurses in children's. One of the big themes that's emerging from that is, from the whole project, is the need for leadership to integrate practice, research, policy, and education. So we really need to integrate it all, so that at the bedside, that the influence of research, policy, education is very evident in the care that the children receive. Another really interesting theme that's coming out is that whole concept of what it is to be a children's nurse. And some of the findings in that are really interesting, like being a disruptive thinker and being not afraid to challenge, being an ally for the marginalized. And these are really important because our children need nurses that are up there, especially our, our marginalized children need advocates and people that can navigate the service for them. We have a large group, say, for example, of traveller children in Ireland. We have a lot of migrant children that are living in like direct provision, and they are really marginalised. They find it hard to access the service. They may have language barriers. So there's a lot of areas there that the children's nurse can lead and influence and advocate for the children. I mentioned already the adapting patterns and needs and changing needs for the families. We also will have to review our education. Currently in Ireland at the moment, you can enter children's nursing either as a combined general and children's nursing course or as a postgraduate children's nursing course, and they both lead to registration. But we may need to look at different models. We may need to look at modules for our colleagues that aren't registered children's nurses, but we may need to look at modules to give them the skills that we feel is appropriate. We also will have to look at our governance. And a huge theme, and I think it was really interesting what Julie's point about retention and their leadership program. That whole area of valuing our profession and leading to retention will be really important for us. We have a brand new hospital that we have to staff. We also have a country that we have to staff because Children's Health Ireland educates the children's nurses for the entire country. So it's really important that we value our nurses. So that's what we're currently doing in Ireland in relation to children's nursing. And more importantly, now you need to hear from our Nightingale candidates. So our Department of Health and our Office of the Nursing and Midwifery Services Director in the HSE both have three children's nurses as part of the Nightingale project, and 3 of them come from Children's Health Ireland from 2 different sites. One is from 2 from Crumlin and 1 from Temple Street Hospital. So Teresa is going to present on her experience of the Nightingale Challenge, and Teresa is a clinical educator on an infant ward. And I also have in the room with me Christine Flynn, who is a nurse specialist, and on the webinar we also have Amy Cunningham, who's a staff nurse in one of our paediatric intensive care units. So I'm going to hand over to Teresa. We're just going to do a little swap here, so we'll just take a second there to switch the camera.
Hi everybody, and thanks Rosie for that introduction there. So I'm just going to give you a quick overview of, I suppose, my experience of being a Nightingale Challenge candidate this year for the Year of the Nurse and Midwife. So just a quick bit about my history and my background first. I qualified as a children's and general nurse in 2014, and I began working in Children's Health Ireland in 2015. I soon realised that my passion lay in education and helping new and emerging nursing students, I suppose, develop as a children's nurse. So in 2017, I began my master's in nursing education, and when I finished that in 2019, I began working as a clinical nurse education facilitator, which is a clinical nurse manager grade position. So honestly, I was pretty intimidated when I first got the role because I was so young in my career. I was very aware that there were a lot of other nurses with far more years experience than I had, but I quickly learned that the amount of years of experience wasn't the most important thing in being an educator. I think to introduce change and to educate people, you really need to be a nurse leader, and being a nurse leader can happen at any age. So this year I was lucky enough to be mentored by the Chief Nursing Officer of the country, Rachel Kenna, and to get an idea from her of what it's like to, I suppose, lead an entire country of nurses. So Rachel not alone was an inspiration to me because of where she has gotten to in her career, but also because she was the Director of Nursing in CHI at Crumlin. So it really showed me the scope of opportunities that there are for children's nursing. Myself and the other 4 candidates had an opportunity to chat with the director of or the chief nursing officer and the deputy chief nursing officers. We got involved in lots of different webinars, such as learning about policy and how to implement policy. We learned about the safe staffing framework in the country, which has been shown to improve patient outcomes and improve staff retention rates. We also learned about Ireland's need to develop and appoint more advanced nurse practitioners. And we discussed the future of virtual hospitals. So in my role as an educator, I found that was hugely beneficial because I have a responsibility to, I suppose, train and upskill over 40 nurses in my department, and knowing the ultimate goal of where nursing needs to get to in Ireland, I was able to, I suppose, guide people and chat to people about the opportunities there are in digital nursing and advanced practice. So that was really, really beneficial. It also allowed me to bring, I suppose, the national message back to the frontline nursing staff, and to just that we all have a very clear communication about where we're going, what are we doing, and as Rosie said there, think about who we are as children's nurses, which was a really, really interesting question to pose to some of the staff. Unfortunately, a lot of our proposed activities were postponed due to COVID-19, but I was delighted now to hear that the Nightingale Challenge will be extended for the next 2 years, because it's been really, really fantastic to get to meet different nurse leaders from around the country, such as Rosie, and to join groups like the Children's Nursing Strategy that I never even thought I could be a part of, really, to be honest. It has allowed me to question myself and my own practices, and it's given me a very clear goal of where we need to get to as children's nurses. I suppose this year has been very challenging for most people across the whole world, but in Crumlin, we're no exception to that. In our hospital, we experienced many challenges as well. And what I learned from the Nightingale Challenge and from my role as an educator is that as a leader, you really need to listen to your team. You need to communicate very honestly and very timely with them. You need to be very supportive, respectful, involve your team in everything that you're doing to bring them along with you. And I suppose to manage all that, you need to be very resilient. As a leader, sometimes I kind of felt like, oh, I'm on my own, but you're never on your own. There's a team of nurse leaders out there as well that can help you and support you and help you to become resilient in supporting your team. The main thing that I learned is just have a very clear and defined goal of what we want to achieve. And the nursing strategy this year has really, really helped define where children's nursing needs to get to in the future and how we bring our team there, how we get there. So that's a very quick overview of my experiences as a Nightingale Challenge participant, and I look forward to any questions later on. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. I'd imagine, I bet Rosie, you're bursting with pride, aren't you?
Pardon?
Are you bursting with pride?
I could stop sharing there.
I think you can go on to mute, Rosie.
Has that gone off there?
Is that it?
Sorry now, yeah, sorry.
How's Shall we try again? That's perfect.
No, sorry about that.
No, it's okay. I was just saying, Rosie, I bet you're bursting with pride just listening to that fantastic Nightingale Challenge leader there. It's just brilliant.
Yeah, she's fabulous. And we also have Christine in the room as well, and Amy's online. So we're very lucky. Like we, in Ireland, we only, our children's nurse education only became a university-led education system around 2006. As a combined general and children's nursing program, and prior to that, from 2000 around 2000 is when we became a university profession in Ireland. So our first dual qualified children's nurses came into the system around 2006. 11. So we're really starting in the strategy to starting to see the results of that. Like a lot of the information from the strategy showing things like the value of research and data. So it's fantastic. It's really good, and you can see it in Teresa and Christine, who's here in the room, and Amy. When you speak to them, they're fabulous. And there's great potential for us to grow lots more of them, because there's another 5,000 of us in the country, so there's lots of potential.
Brilliant. I wonder if you can mute now. I'm so sorry. It's just that it seems to be somehow there's a reaction. But Rosie, sort of some of the stuff that's come through in the box and the chat is about, you know, the opportunity to collaborate. Do you think that within Ireland, although there's 5,000 of you, there's a lot, but there's not a lot. Do you think that any of your early career nurses would be interested, for example, if you're partnering with Cincinnati?
I'm sure they would. Yeah. What do you think, ladies? The two ladies are in the room, can maybe answer that. But I think it's fantastic. There's great opportunities to network globally, and for our young colleagues. Do you want to? I'll step up here. Sorry, we're moving around a bit because the three of us are in the room. But I'll step. Do you want to speak, Christine?
Yeah, I think it would be a fantastic opportunity. I think all of us, a lot of Irish nurses over the years have always travelled and worked abroad as well. I think we're well known for that. Personally, I've worked in the UK as well. So it would be a fantastic opportunity to integrate globally and work with other partnerships. Absolutely. I think everyone would be very interested and motivated.
It's a very fast-moving area of nursing, children's nursing. And I suppose seeing children surviving now with more complex needs, it's ever changing and ever evolving, and I think by networking with our colleagues and counterparts abroad as well, it would be great to learn from everyone, especially in Cincinnati and leading children's hospitals.
Brilliant. Again, if you that's it. Great, thank you. So Julie, I guess over to you in a way, your thoughts about maybe exploring a partnership. I mean, your program is just amazing. Well, both programs are, but I know a little bit about the Magnet Journey experience and the strive for nursing excellence. And in England, we've got our first Magnet accreditation that happened just a few weeks ago at Nottingham, which is kind of in the middle. And I'm very friendly with the chief nurse there, Mandy Sunderland, that's sort of pioneering this excellence concept and sort of excellence as a way to do business in health as well. And I think there could be some really exciting opportunities to partner, especially around maybe the shared governance agenda. But I mean, would love to get your thoughts, Julie, on where you think the synergies might be between Cincinnati and Ireland.
Yes, I think it would be a wonderful opportunity. I think we could certainly learn a lot from our colleagues in Ireland as well. We don't have a particular pediatric nursing program in the United States. It's all general nursing, and then you specialize. And so we do a lot of training once they specialize in the hospital. So I think it would be an awesome partnership to be able to learn from our colleagues in Ireland. So I'm excited about this.
Brilliant. Well, it might be worth just bringing Matt in now, that leads on the partnerships, to talk about, Matt, some of the successes when you've matched organisations together and some of the kind of gold dust that comes along with that.
Yes, certainly. Thank you. So today we've been able to unite, or to bring into partnership, 100 organisations in 41 countries, 50 partnerships. And of those, some of them have been one-to-one, or some other organisations have also wanted to join, and they've partnered with other organisations. There's 2 or 3 partnerships going on with one organisation. It's been absolutely fascinating. And these have been from all over the world, as you can imagine. Very great spread. And some of the things that have come out of it has been really, really, really interesting. Just to observe how they've developed and what they've sought to work on, to collaborate with. Most recently, we've had Penn University in the US working with the Ministry of Health in Oman. So it's not from hospital to hospital or from clinic to clinic. It's very strategic, but also partnerships between a small clinic in Russia that that is focused on emergency care, and also starting to now go into conversations with a university in England as well. So it's this trade-off between what can I learn from you, but what can you give from me? And it's not dictative. They are finding their own common ground between them all. And each day they open the emails, it's changing all the time. It's absolutely fascinating. And they're finding their own way through it all. They know what they are looking for, or to explore what they're looking for. And for us, for ourselves at Nightingale Challenge, it's finding the partners, making the building those relationships for them. And then also seeing, because we're seeing a greater view, it's not just that one relationship, there's other relationships that are coming out of this all over the place. So we're able to link people together, which is great. And it's all about communication. We always say communication in nursing midwifery. Yeah, this is true global nursing communication, which is absolutely gives you goosebumps. So it's fascinating.
And I think the other bit that I hear is the fact that they're building a global network, something they didn't automatically think they would do as nurses and midwives. But I think, as we know, if we've been around for a bit, your network is hugely important. And the more you know and the more you can connect, the more fulfillment you get, I think, out of your career. Jennifer, I know you've got a question that you'd like to ask, so it would be good to hear from you, if that's okay.
Hi, yes, thank you. I was just curious to hear, especially for both of you that have participated in the Nightingale Challenge, how do you feel that participating in the Nightingale Challenge potentiated what you were already doing? Because Julie, it sounds like, especially, well, both in at CHI and in Cincinnati, that you have a lot of good leadership things already happening. So what did this give you that you didn't have before you participated?
So I can start with that. So it gave us an opportunity to increase the amount of people that we actually had in the programs. So we definitely doubled the amount of spots that we had open because, it does cost a little bit of money to be able to do that, to have people in the program, because it's taken time away from their frontline work. So it gave us that opportunity. And additionally, as we've just learned here, it gives us the opportunity to network with other organizations around the world, which is probably the best part of this, to learn from each other.
Great, thanks, Julie. I don't know whether you want to come in. I think it's a really good question. It's what's the value add of doing this and badging it as a sort of global early career leadership program?
Well, I suppose for us in Ireland, we're just starting with our 3 candidates here, but I think for CHI and children's nursing in Ireland, with all of the change that's happening in the country, we need leadership. And I think that participating in Nightingale, it brings nurse leadership to the fore. And if we want to solve the issues that are there for the children and their families in this country, we need nurses to come into that space of offering solutions, nurse-led solutions, with our advanced practice, our nurse specialists, our staff nurses on the ground, on the wards. Like, there's a lot nursing can do to meet the needs of the children. And sometimes maybe our education is more towards the clinical side, not the leadership. But as far as I can see from our 2 ladies here, it's all about behaviors and attitudes, and it's not about a role. It's about the influence you can have by having the right set of skills, behaviors and attitude. And I think all nurses, and especially our young nurses, can have those skills and influence others, and therefore the children, and improve outcomes. So yeah, I think it's so I think this is great because it highlights leadership, but it highlights that it's not just a position.
Thanks, Rosie. And I think one of the ambitions that we've certainly got at Nursing Now with the Nightingale Challenge is to not only help early career nurses and midwives and their employers give people a platform to share across a wider audience, but also to amplify the work that's going on. And certainly with our brain hemorrhage and brain injury work, and putting the spotlight on, actually in many countries, a Cinderella or almost non-existent service has been really helpful in enabling people to share these really difficult things that don't always get investment, they don't always get their voices heard, and they don't always have the opportunity to come together. So I think with paediatric nursing, it would just be brilliant to have this kind of groundswell of excellence that networks and comes together, that we can pinpoint particular problems to provide the solutions, and indeed we can show and tell to influential people, the decision makers, the policy makers, and those that hold the purse strings. So I think the more we do of this and the more groups that we create around the nursing workforce, the more influence that we can bring to bear, because we know that our problem isn't influencing each other, it's influencing the wider system and securing that investment and achieving that profile, making sure that we do get heard. So that's sort of within some of our thinking about where we want to go with this fantastic, you know, force for good. And it's a big force, over 30,000, you know, people out there talking up. Leadership can be there. It is in your early career. You've not got to be trained for goodness knows how many years before you get the chance to influence. You can do it now. I think is proving to be quite powerful, actually, and long may it continue is what I'd like to say. We're about at time now, so I don't know if anybody on the panel or our fantastic Nightingale Challenge participants have got any final words they want to say. Is there anything that anybody particularly wants to close on? I'm wondering actually whether we should hand it to our Nightingale Challenge participants. What's your top tips to anybody that's thinking of signing up to this and giving it a go?
I would just say absolutely take the opportunities that are there. It's been absolutely brilliant in terms of networking. I suppose putting children's nursing on the table in terms of the wider scope of nursing as well. I kind of had thought children's nursing was very niche, but when I see the networking that's happened worldwide and the opportunities that are there for children's nursing, it's really opened my eyes to a lot. And even just seeing the nurse leaders we have in this country, like our old director of nursing is now the chief nursing officer, that's been really inspirational. And I wouldn't have probably known about that only for the Nightingale Challenge, to be honest. Yeah, it's been brilliant.
Yeah, I can agree, just echo everything she said. I think there's a huge amount of learning available from it. In my group of 15, we've everything. It's not just, there's 2 children's nursing participants, there's mental health, maternity, everything. There's so much interdisciplinary learning that we've been opened up to. We have the opportunity to have mentorship as well, which is unbelievable, to have someone talking you through your career opportunities. That one-to-one type opportunity you just would never get on any other platform. So we're so fortunate and so thankful for the opportunity, and definitely encourage people to go forward with it if they have the opportunity.
Perfect. Well, it couldn't be. You couldn't have said it better, could you, Rosie? It's perfect, and I can see a really exciting partnership that will emerge between Cincinnati and Ireland too as a result of today. And these are just the very opportunities that serendipitously come our way when we start to network and connect. So thank you so very much for all your time and effort that's gone into this from a wonderful panel, our Nightingale Challenge participants, and all of those that's listened in. Wishing you stay safe and well, and look forward to connecting again soon. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Mm-hmm.